Oh my God, just look at what those Illuminate bastards did to Angel's Venture. Look at it. Actually, yeah, now that I look at it, something seems off. This doesn't look like what I thought I'd expect from a planet that was destroyed by a black hole. So what happened here? And why does this look like a projectile exit wound on Angel's Venture? Obviously, Helldivers is a work of science fiction, but Arrowhead does anchor a fair amount of that fiction into science and real-world theories, which is why I find the wreckage of what's left of Angel's Venture so intriguing. Like my Terminated Biology video, we're going to try to find where real-life science meets science fiction and see if we can't find the truth of what happened to Angel's Venture. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. All right, let me front load this with a very big, I know that this will not be the most scientifically precise video in the history of black holes. I'm not an astrophysicist. I thought about going to get a degree in astrophysics just so I could make this video with a higher degree of confidence, but I've got like probably 48 hours max here before the next big development happens in Helldivers, so time is of the essence. Why am I saying Angel's Venture is not consistent with what a planet would probably look like if one were to be destroyed by a black hole? That's a complicated answer, but basically the short version is that what's left of Angel's Venture isn't destroyed and pulled apart enough to be consistent with the level of destruction we could expect from a relatively large black hole. Black holes are classified by mass, anywhere from tens of times the mass of our own sun to billions of times the mass of our sun, and these are called stellar black holes for the smaller ones, and then when they get to millions or billions of times the mass of our solar system star, those are supermassive black holes. Stellar black holes are formed when a star collapses in on itself. It requires a star much bigger than our sun, and the tremendous mass of all the gas and trace amounts of heavy elements required to keep it ignited for billions of years all crumbles into one infinitesimally tiny point. This gargantuan amount of material being crumpled into as close to zero volume as it can causes an explosion, and what's left is a region of matter so dense it creates a gravitational pull that distorts the fabric of reality itself, pulling everything toward it from which nothing can escape, even light. Now, I'm not going to get into the formation of intermediate or supermassive black holes because stellar covers the size relevant for our purposes in Helldivers. So could Meridia collapse into this type of black hole? No, we can rule this out right away because in order to form, it would require the collapse of a star several times the size and mass of our own sun. I suppose in the most technical of terms, I cannot prove to you mathematically beyond the shadow of a doubt that the planet Meridia was not as large or as dense as the sun. However, since Helldivers perform missions on a variety of planets that all seem to be consistent with Earth-like conditions, including how gravity affects their bodies, and if you could fit 1.3 million Earths inside of the sun, and the sun is 333,000 times heavier than Earth, I'm gonna ask you guys to go out on a limb with me in my rough estimate that the planet Meridia was probably not as large or as dense as the sun. Even if Meridia had somehow been such a size and density that it rivaled that of the star in our own real-life solar system, then you'd have to believe that Meridia was then multiplied by a factor of at least 5 because our own sun is not large enough to collapse into a black hole itself. Considering all these factors, I think we can pretty safely put aside the notion that Meridia was large or dense enough to collapse into a black hole at all. But putting aside the constraint of physics and what we currently understand about black holes, let's say that the events in Helldivers 2 forced Meridia to become a black hole. Because it did. What size would it be? Well, using our criteria from earlier, we can pretty safely assume that Meridia is relatively Earth-like in size. If Earth was suddenly turned into a black hole, the total diameter of that black hole would be anywhere from 9 to around 18 millimeters. Yep, millimeters. And this is based on halfway scholarly articles that either cite their sources or was actually written by an astrophysicist, not just some guy on Quora. And yeah, you know, I'll say that the sense of scale of the Meridia black hole is hard to gauge because we have no frame of reference to help get us an actual measurement, but we can all agree that this hole in-game is much, much much larger than just a fefew millimeters. So surely a black hole of this size must be capable of destroying a planet like Angel's Venture. And to that I have to say, oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt. But the problem is that it would actually strip Angel's Venture down to the atomic level and wreak havoc on all planets and celestial bodies in proximity to it. We're talking spaghettification of at least part of Angel's Venture as the hole moves through it, plus destabilizing the orbit and location of all the other planets in proximity to it. But Angel's Venture is clearly not spaghettified. Even our super destroyers were able to sit and observe the phenomenon at a relatively close distance without being sucked in. How is that possible? This is where the science fiction comes in. The Meridia black hole, singularity, space thing, whatever you want to call it, actually checks a lot of boxes for our real life but admittedly theoretical understanding of wormholes. The way that black holes and wormholes are related is that it is theoretically mathematically possible for a singularity to condense down to such a point where the fabric of space-time itself curves to such an extreme it forms a tunnel and is expelled out the other side by a theoretical counterpart white hole, connecting 2 points of space, time, or possibly even connecting different universes. Of course, it isn't just that simple. Even if a wormhole were to be found and proven to exist, it would require a lot of other theoretical factors to be just right in order for it to be traversable. One element would be the existence of what's called exotic material to help make the wormhole stable. Theorized exotic materials include things like dark matter, dark energy, and various things like quantum liquids and time crystals that would manipulate and distort mass, pressure, and energy. These are the forces that would need to be distorted, manipulated, and quite possibly the inverse of them somehow all applied to the wormhole in order to force it open and not just have it immediately collapse back in on itself. Now, these exotic materials I just mentioned are actually really things that scientists have posited that they might exist. They're actually part of the basis for an Alcubierre drive, which is, fun fact, the type of faster than light drive our super destroyers use for travel in Helldivers 2. Meridia turned into a black hole by using the mysterious dark fluid that is Illuminate in its origins to inject this exotic fluid deep into the planet itself, which eventually resulted in the planet destabilizing and collapsing in on itself. Because it was caused by use of an exotic material created by a civilization with technology so advanced that many of their capabilities, like moving a singularity through space, are still a mystery to us, and based on the size of the hole itself but its apparent lack of destructive power that would normally be attributed to a black hole of this size, it's a pretty reasonable theory to posit that Meridia was never a black hole at all, but instead a fully stable wormhole. Which brings us back to the wreckage of Angel's Venture. If Meridia isn't a black hole, how was it destroyed? Well, take a look at this image of what's left of Angel's Venture when you free cam out of your super destroyer. The bulk of the cracked planet and its magma core is being strewn specifically to the left, and there are trail gases showing leftward movement as well. This looks a hell of a lot like an exit wound, which means that most likely Angel's Venture was not pulled apart from the outside like a black hole would, but some kind of large projectile blasted through it. But it couldn't have been Meridia itself, because as we know now, the black hole would be so large it would have spaghettified the planet. Something that was established in the first Helldivers game is that Super Earth accused the Illuminate of having weapons of mass destruction capable of destroying entire planets with a single attack, and Angel's Venture certainly seems to be evidence that this may have actually been true. What I'm trying to say is I just spent the last 9 or so minutes breaking down black holes in theoretical physics so I could have an actual foundation to say, I think the Illuminate just did a cosmic drive-by on us and the hole itself isn't the weapon, but the Illuminate forces are hiding on the other side with a super weapon. Thank you. If you're wondering if I'm okay, the answer is no, I'm deeply mentally ill. I squeeze